welcome to another edition of Joe's Rod Shop podcast. Yes. Okay, so yeah, I know it's been a while, but I'm back. Once again, I was on the road, all over the country, busy shooting Rod Shop Season 4, and it's looking cool. I've seen some of the most amazing cars ever, bikes. This show is going to be pretty cool. Now, before I get started, once again, just want to remind you, do the whole like button thing for us there and subscribe and, leave a message. We love hearing from you guys. Just a bit of feedback for the next edition of SA Hot Rods. It is at the printers and should be out by next week. So, yeah, look out for that one. There's also some cool competitions and stuff coming out. Because when my ride is coming back, you'll see videos and stuff coming out on that now in the next few weeks. Now, for today's episode, he's a very cool guy. I've had him on the show before. His name is Dan Kahn. He heads up Kahn Media. He is an absolute guru for the aftermarket industry. His company, Kahn Media, represents massive amount of aftermarket guys. He deals with everyone. He's got a great overview, and he works with SEMA and this type. He's actually on the board. Now, everybody knows SEMA is not going this year. I'm very depressed. Every year I try and get myself to SEMA, and every year something's happened. And this year I'm even more depressed because I was actually invited by Ring Brothers to launch their car this year. So I'm crying crocodile tears at the moment. They're huge. So depressed that SEMA's not going. But it doesn't mean that SEMA was just not there. Now, these guys have set up a thing called SEMA 360. Now, I'll put a link and stuff on. There's a YouTube channel where you can go watch everything. Now, Dan Kahn's going to come on the show, and he's telling us about everything that's happening. Basically, how the companies have now pivoted to deal with the fact that SEMA's not there and how they're getting that product information out there so we know what's going on. This is a really interesting episode. We cover a bunch of new stuff, a bunch of new builds. Without further ado, Mr. Dan Kahn.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Were you at home or you at the office?
I'm at the office.
At the office. I was thinking today, the last time we spoke, it was, during lockdown?
Yeah, it was right at the kind of beginning of this whole thing.
We were so young and naive back then,
Oh, yeah, this is going to blow over. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. SEMA's going to be amazing.
Right. What's happening in South Africa? Are you guys locked down still or no?
We are level 1, but there's always threats that we're going to go back to it. Our borders are open. We can start traveling again and that type of stuff. Economy is doing okay, but I don't think we felt like the end result of it yet. I think it's still.
Well, I don't think anybody has.
Yeah. How's things on your side? I mean, you guys must be excited. SEMA 360. I got my approval today.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So, how's things on that side?
They're good. I mean, it's interesting. It's been weird. I mean, it kind of depends on who you ask and what industry they work in and all that. So California has been pretty much locked down since March. They in our
really?
County by county they change and we're just north of LA. So we're in Ventura County and we're a smaller county with a lot more agriculture. So our numbers are better. So they've allowed the restaurants to reopen, but only outdoors. But everything else is still pretty locked down. And in LA, they are completely locked down. Like the Peterson Museum is a client, but they're still not allowed to open. The museums are all closed. The amusement parks are closed. It's still fairly locked up out here.
And I've been speaking to a bunch of friends in LA, and they say things are rough there. Hey, like things are deteriorating very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. The societal fabric is starting to break down, which is not so great. But it's a mixed bag,
I always say to people, we keep forgetting what emotional turmoil this is going to cause. Tempers are shorter. I mean, I think that's why there's so much crap going on at the moment. I mean, everyone's angry,
Yeah, you're right. And it's sort of interesting because I feel like we're very fortunate that we work primarily in the automotive aftermarket. And the one sort of nice, I guess, silver lining is the best way to say it. I mean, this has been hard on everybody.
Yeah.
I think emotionally and mentally, it's hard on everybody. Every business owner on the planet is going through the same thing that we're going through. The one nice thing is car guys are car guys.
Yeah.
And you tell a car guy or girl that, hey, I'm going to lock you in your house with your family for 6 months, and you can't leave and you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything. They're going to keep working on their car.
Yeah. It's like,
And
can I
as a
buy
result,
parts?
the
Yeah.
aftermarket has right. And that's exactly it, is our aftermarket parts clients have been doing quite well. So,
Mhm.
sales are in many cases up, if not stable. They've had to pivot to figure out sort of the supply chain's gotten pretty weird.
Yeah.
Inventory has been hard, but beyond that, enthusiasts are still buying car parts. The builders that we work with are all still super busy building cars. So
Mm.
thankfully, like if we were in like the fast food business, it'd be, or in the
Yeah.
restaurant business, it'd be a totally different story. But
I
but
was reading up on
luckily, car guys are pretty resilient.
I was reading up on all the restaurants and all the big name, chefs and stuff with their restaurants and how they're busy closing down left, right, and center at the moment. Yeah, but we
Yep.
will rebuild. I've been in Johannesburg shooting season 4 of my show, so I've been dealing with the guys from Rockford and all this type of stuff, and they like it's moving. It's not dead. All the shops are open. You can work. Event, you can do event, but I think you're limited to 500 people or something like that. You have to, there's still the mask
Hmm.
wearing things and all this type of stuff. But what the change that we found is during you'd normally have a lot of people that would go over on holidays and that's overseas holidays and stuff, and a lot of them are working either on their cars or they're working on their homes, so that's kind of pumping money back into it, into the local market more than anything else. And then the guys I know that sell like project cars, they're busy. They said they've never sold so many cars before in such a short amount of time. I think maybe guys have gone, time is short, so I've always wanted to do something. Now it's time. And then there's the investment. I mean, there's a big conversation because there's the investment part on it and all that type of stuff. Because, I mean, property is just doing so badly at the moment. So where do
Right.
you go? So tell me about SEMA 360, because a lot of guys that don't understand this or know how it works.
Cool. Yes, there's a lot going on in the aftermarket right now. It's interesting, and I'm proud of how resilient our industry is. And it's interesting, Joe. When I feel old, man. I've been doing this a long time. So I got into the industry, and I mean, I was actually working a parts counter in the mid '90s, and then I actually got more of a professional gig in '98. So I've been doing it for a while. And the thing I love about the aftermarket is, unlike almost any other industry that I know, it's mostly a collection of people like you and me. And whether it's Vic Edelbrock when he started Edelbrock, and Ed Iskandarian at Iski, all the way to today, and new companies that work with tuners and stuff like that. Most of the time, it's a guy or a girl with an idea who's usually an enthusiast and an engineer that you know they had an
It's a
idea
dream.
and they come up with a product. And so it's a yeah, and they chase it because it's a passion project. I don't think anybody wakes up one day and goes to business school and gets an MBA and says, I'm going to make my fortune
Mm.
building air suspension, or grinding camshafts or whatever. I mean,
Exactly.
it's their passion. And the consumers are the same way. If you're a car guy, or girl, you're a car person, and you can't get it out of your blood. You can't get it out of your head. If you're not working on your car, you're reading a magazine like yours, or you're listening to a podcast, or you're watching YouTube, or reading about stuff on the internet. And so what's cool about that culture, and how hardcore both our business owners and our consumers are, is something like this happens, and around the whole, and you and I were just talking about it, the whole world shuts down.
Yeah.
And admittedly, it's kind of scary, especially if you're watching the news. It's pretty dark right now about all the stuff that's going on in the news. And car guys have this ability. I mean, I've been doing it too. It's like, you know what? I got to turn all that off for a little while. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear it. I got to get away from the bad news. I'm just going to go out in the garage, and maybe I'm just going to tinker, or maybe I'm going to like rebuild my motor. Like, it could be a minor
Yeah.
thing, it could be a major thing, but everyone's out there working. So the resilience of the industry has been really cool. And on that same note, what's been interesting is watching how these different groups and event companies and associations have sort of pivoted to sort of adapt to the new rules. And I think like with SEMA, as we've talked about before, I'm on the SEMA board and I'm the chairman of the SEMA show. I think someone from SEMA could probably give a better perspective as an official employee of SEMA. I'm a volunteer leader, but I'm proud of the staff. They did a good job. I think, they made the hard decision in August to cancel the show, and they immediately got to work on SEMA 360. That's going live very soon, next week. And so and on the second, and what to give you the sneak preview, what it's going to look like is sort of a kind of a hybrid. It's not really a trade show, but it's not just a website. It's sort of this gathering where all the companies got together and they have this sort of a common platform, and it almost feels more like a social media platform where you go on and every company has their own booth, and the booth is kind of like a company's page, like a profile page, and you can read about the company, you can click buttons and see all the new products. In many cases, there's video.
Is that like Facebook for car guys? Because that would be the best thing ever.
It's like LinkedIn and Facebook combined for car guys. And
no more politics, just cars.
No, thank God. I don't need any more politics in my life. Wow. I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but right now, I think we're all sick of it. Like, I don't care, blue, red, green, whatever, we're all burned out on it. But so the 360 thing is cool, and I'm really proud of not only the SEMA team but of the member companies who were pretty much told, like, if you want to participate in this, we're pulling this whole thing together in a couple of months, and get on it and just make the do what you can do, and the more work you put into it, the better your presence is going to be. So that's happening. I think that's really cool, and I'm excited for everyone to see it and try it. And I hope everyone also sort of takes the right perspective and say, hey, look, is this going to replace the show in Vegas? No, nothing beats, walking into a booth and picking up parts and looking at some new, Troy Trepanier build or Ring Brothers build. I mean, that is what it is. You can't replace that, but it is cool. So that's really neat. And then what's also cool is sort of all the moons that orbit around our industry, all these other things that are sort of adapting and changing too. So the PRI show, which SEMA also owns PRI, and that's in Indianapolis, and that's more of the hardcore motorsports and race parts. Really cool. Unfortunately, same deal. Had to cancel it. No one's really doing in-person trade shows right now. And what they're doing is really cool. They said, hey, rather than doing another SEMA 360, because that'd be kind of weird to have SEMA 360 and then a month later a PRI 360, and that's there's a lot of kind of overlap there. So what they did is Jamie Meyer was actually a board member, and a lot of people know him as he was the head of GM Performance Parts for many years, and before, and also well known as a drag racer and a journalist. Jamie just took the he's like the president of PRI. It's sort of like a director position during the pandemic. It happened, in the last 6-7 months, and so, I mean, geez, could you imagine, like, you leave this corporate GM job for this role, leading an association and a trade show in the middle of like the biggest crisis for event companies ever. So I respect the leadership that he's shown, and his idea, and they've been doing an unbelievable job. If you're not checking this out, it's well worth it. Is they said, hey, rather than doing another virtual thing, we're going to get a group of videographers and writers and storytellers. We're going to put them in a van, and we're going to make them all wear masks, and we're going to make them adhere to the social distancing protocols. And we're going to just do a road trip. We're going to go across the country. We're going to go to Richard Childress Racing. We're going to go to Edel Rock. We're going to go all these different, we're going to show you how it's super cool. And they're like, we're going to go to racetracks and ask the racetracks how they're surviving this. We're going to go to the parts manufacturers and show you how all the parts are made. We're going to go to the race shops and get the inside look at their operations.
I would love to do that. Man, that must be so awesome.
It's so cool. And if you go to Performance Racing Industries, I mean, you can go to the PRI website or just go to their YouTube channel. The quality of filmmaking they're doing is unbelievable. They're doing like a killer job. These things look like, I mean, they look almost like short films you'd see at like a film festival. They're so well produced. Nice. So the quality is fantastic. It's a really cool perspective, because it's like, look, if you're stuck at home, I don't know about you. Yeah, I've pretty much watched everything I can watch on Netflix. There's nothing left to watch. I don't want to go on Facebook anymore because I'm sick of all the politics.
Yeah.
So if you can go on this YouTube channel and watch all this awesome stuff, it's great.
Mm.
So, so they're doing a really good job. One of our clients is Garrett Advancing Motion, Garrett Turbochargers.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a scoop. There's a preview on YouTube right now, and we're going to announce it next week. But they did something really cool where they're doing 360. It's not replacing 360, but kind of as sort of in addition to. They got together with their web development team, and they said, we're going to still have a trade show booth, but we're going to make it actually virtual. And
Oh,
they rendered
wow.
an entire trade show booth in digital animation, and it's a completely immersive experience. So you can go in and you can click on all the new product just like you would if you were there, and it brings up all this immersive video that shows you videos of all the new product.
That's so
You can meet
cool.
with people. They're going to have project vehicles baked into it, and it's slick. Like, they did a really good job.
Nice.
So they did that, which I think is really cool. And then there's another company called the AAM Group that's sort of like a hybrid. They're sort of a marketing agency and a rep group kind of combined,
Mm.
that mostly specializes in the truck and off-road and Jeep parts, accessories businesses. And so like they do Truck Hero and all their kind of sub brands and all that. And we've known those guys for a while, and they do a really good job. And they're doing something kind of different that's really cool, where they're doing a thing called The Event, where it's trade only. It's not for the consumer.
Mm.
And if you have a shop, or you're a jobber or an installer, and it doesn't necessarily mean like a hardcore, like,
Yeah.
like mod shop. It could just be a company, shop that does like window tinting and bed liners, that kind of thing.
Mm.
You can attend this event, and it's totally video driven. But instead of doing it by company, what they're doing is new product roundups. So they're going to do one that's like they're going to do one on, say, like the new JL and JT Jeeps, where they're going to say, hey, today we're going to talk about all the new exterior accessories from like 15 different companies for the Jeep. So if you do a lot
Mm.
of Jeep builds, watch this video, and we're going to talk about all the new bumpers, all the new winches, all the new recovery gear,
Oh,
rooftop
so
tents,
cool.
overlanding stuff. And if you're a shop owner, instead of having to go like company by company and like click on all the stuff, you can just watch this. And they've got a nice lady who's like their presenter, and she seems pretty well versed in the whole thing. And you can watch the whole thing and
And
go,
it just
okay,
goes through all
and
the
just write
products
down
and
notes.
stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I want to buy it.
Yeah. I want that one,
Yep,
and then that
yep. So
one.
it's really been exactly. So I would say, like, if you look at between SEMA 360, PRI, what like this event thing that AAM's doing, what a lot of these individual companies are doing, like Garrett, same thing with like Quadratech is one of our good clients, and Quadratech is taking a different approach where they have an internal studio. So they're literally just producing video of every new product they have, and they're just going to
Oh,
put it out there
wow.
for the consumer. So everyone's got sort of a different take on it. And I think that our industry has been stuck in a groove for so long, and it's not bad. But for
Yeah.
30 years, we've been doing the same thing every year.
Uh,
And now it's like, hey, if you want to, you can just hide under the rug and do nothing. But if you want to get creative,
now's
do
it.
it.
But it does, because
And it's
look,
cool.
it's like the thing we were talking about earlier. It's the same thing. It's time to. This has given us, everyone, the opportunity to relook at everything and going, but well, why we keep doing things the same way we've been doing for the last 30 years? Why is it still working?
Right.
What can we change? How can we improve? What makes it better? We've taken the time, and we can finally tweak the system, where it works for everybody, not just for a few, more than anything else.
Right.
But
Right.
I love the new idea and the new concept. But I saw you guys were busy. I mean, you guys did something with Aprilia now, and then you guys did something, and you released some
We
videos on
did.
Lotus and stuff as well.
Yeah, it's been really a fun, well, it's been a mixed bag for the last 6 months. Right? Certainly things have been challenging, but certain things have been fun. The way I'm wired as sort of as an entrepreneur, I like being faced with new challenges. I
Mm.
get bored if I'm doing the same thing. What was that? Like some kind of
It's
South
a
African bug
it's
that
a
just flew by or something?
massive, massive moth. And then, well, I'm at my mom's house, just so you know, and she's got two
Okay.
kittens, and they are attacking everything. So I'm getting attacked by the bottom here because it's attacking me and a moth at the same time. So
There you go. So yeah, with the Aprilia thing, I love new challenges. Anytime we can do something that challenges us and forces us to kind of grow and learn new
Mm.
tactics and push sort of the boundaries of what we do, it's exciting to me. And That actually happened almost immediately after the pandemic started, where uh, we do a lot of work at Monterey Car Week. For our agency, the two big kind of tent poles all year are SEMA, obviously, and then Monterey Car Week, which is like the Pebble Beach
Mm,
Concours, the Rolex Reunion, the Quail, all these sort of like, there's like 8 major events that happen within 1 week, all in the same town.
mm.
And we represent about half of those events in terms of PR and social. So when that got canceled, or even before it got canceled, when we knew it was most likely going to get canceled, we kind of circled back with the clients and the team and said, okay, what do we do? We're going to have to come up with some sort of plan B. And they challenged us to come up with new things. And the Peterson Automotive Museum, which is generally considered one of the best automotive museums in the world,
Mm.
is a longtime client. And we met with them and said, hey, there's an opportunity here. You guys have been shut down just like every other museum in the country. You've got a great brand, you've got a great name, you've got a great team, and Car Week is basically going to get scrubbed. And a lot of the OEMs use Car Week to launch new vehicles. There's
Yeah.
all these things that get kind of baked into it. Why don't we do a virtual event and do a virtual Car Week? And they liked the idea, and so their internal team worked on it with our team, and Michael Bodell, who's their deputy director, who is a guy with a marketing background. He led the charge, and it was amazing. So what we did is we did daily, like long form videos on YouTube. And at that point, production was shut down. No one was allowed to go out and shoot anything. That was when we were in like hardcore lockdown, because
Yeah.
we had to do all the production in June and July to kind of time it with the early August normal Monterey Car Week release date.
Mm.
We had like Gordon Murray design, did the North American debut for the new Murray supercar. He's the guy that designed the McLaren
Yeah.
F1. We had major car builders debut new car builds. We had virtual events. We had historic racing. And all of it was sort of cobbled together from just reaching out to people. And either we would send our team out to shoot video, which we did a lot of that. Malcolm Gladwell, who's that really well-known, like, best-selling author who has a big podcast and written
Yeah.
like 10 or 12 bestsellers. We found out he's a car guy and he goes on Bring a Trailer all the time. And Bring a Trailer as a client. So we actually got to interview, we had Randy, the owner of Bring a Trailer, interview Malcolm Gladwell and talk about like the psychology of why car guys, because you mentioned earlier, collectors are buying cars at a crazy rate right
Yeah.
now. And so we said, hey, here's a guy who writes entire best-selling books on human behavior, and he's a car guy, and he's got I think
God,
an
I need to go
E39
watch that.
M5, and
That must
it's
be
really cool.
insane, eh?
And he literally talks about like, here's the psychology of like, if you're literally watching the news and the news is saying the world economy is crumbling, and your response is, sweet, I'm going to go on this auction site and buy a BMW. Like, why? Like,
Yeah.
what compels you to do that? And so that was a really cool thing that we were a part of. And as a result of that, it allowed us to then go out and say, hey, we've never done this before, but we figured it out. It worked really well. And we can help you do it too. So Aprilia, which is owned by Piaggio, Corey Burns, who's our VP of accounts, is a hardcore Aprilia fan. He's been to their factory in Italy. He owns Tuono, and he's become pretty good friends with their North American marketing guys. And so we've done some little consults and stuff for them in the past, and they came to us and said, hey, we've got this V-twin RS660, superbike that we want to debut. And normally we would just do a debut and do a media event, and obviously that's not possible this year. We want to do some sort of a hybrid event where we want to do a virtual unveil where there is going to be some component tied to it where we will let journalists ride them, but we have to kind of do them one by one. We can't do
Yeah.
a big event. And the bigger challenge is, this was all fairly recently, they're in it. Most of their executives, their engineers, their designers are all in Italy, and Italy is locked down. You cannot get them here. We can't get there. Like, everybody is completely isolated. And they said, but we want it to feel seamless. How do we do that? So I'm super proud of my guys. Skeleton crew. We did this whole thing in like 2 weeks. We wrote
Wow.
scripts, and what we got them to do is we hired a freelance video guy to go to the factory in Italy and interview all the people that needed to be on camera for that. And then we took our team and shot everything on the North American side. And then we hired a videographer up in the Bay Area who has this awesome rig. Have you ever seen like the Porsche Cayenne
Yeah.
Turbo
Oh,
with the
with the
movie camera
with
on
the
the roof
arm. That's so cool.
with the
We've got
arm,
them
right?
here as well. Yeah.
There's a bike version where there's a guy with like a 1300cc super bike with a
What?
camera on an arm, so you can do motorcycle bike to bike, which I didn't even know that was a thing. It's so cool.
I gotta
So
see
we
that.
hired that guy. It's super cool. So he does, and they're doing like high speed canyon runs. So that's how we got the like sort of the motion stuff.
Yeah.
And then we shot everything else except for the one guy over in Italy who shot that stuff. And so we had our guy doing the interview questions here, a person at a different date and time and location in Italy getting the responses. And then we packaged it all together. We actually shot all the beauty stuff on the roof of the Peterson, which normally is so funny because they said, where do you want to do it? We said, well, the Pearson has these beautiful ribbons and it's got the Hollywood Hills in the background, and there's no one downtown right now. So, I mean, you can shoot it and it's totally quiet and it's not a big deal. And we don't even have to worry about like ambient noise or anything. And they're like, that's great. And then the day we went to go shoot it, there's like a massive protest. It was like 100,000 people marching down the street. And it's like, come on. So we had to wait for that to settle down. But we assembled the whole thing and we played the video, and the way it came together is we had a global audience of journalists watching this, and it looked like it was happening in real time.
Real time,
So
yeah.
the production value was really high because we shot everything with cinema cameras, but it looked like it was happening live. And so it worked really well. And then since then we did all the rides and that went really well. So that was like, it was fun. It really challenged us to do something new, and we're really
But
proud of the results.
it's amazing how, like I said, how you have to start thinking out the box. I mean, with shooting my even my little show, I'm shooting. We're calling it the Rockford Army. So we're shooting 10 cars across the country, which we're calling all rounders. You know, it has to be a full. Not just. It's not about sound. It's just it needs to be a car, like an insane car. But obviously, the car's unavailable, or that's you know how it's car guys. It's car doesn't want to start that morning or something. And we started doing the same. Where I've got crews in each town, and then we do a video call. So I'm sitting wherever I am, and then they set up the shot and everything, and they've got the guy for the interview, and then they do a video call with me so I can sit and listen in on the conversation and ask the questions and stuff to do it. So it's amazing how resourceful you can actually be, if you have to,
Absolutely. And I think, and I think that you're right. It's pushing the creators to get more creative. And it's also, I think, adjusting the expectations of the viewer, where I think that people are at the point now where they're going like, hey, I just want to see something entertaining or educational or fun. And if it was shot on Zoom or on an iPhone, cool.
Yeah.
If it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be like some sort of like, super high production value $1 million thing. Like, I think at this point people are valuing authenticity and velocity over
Realism, yeah.
Just straight production value. Yeah,
Exactly. Well, I actually
so it's been interesting.
I had Bud on the show the other day. I mean, you introduced us, and he was telling us the story about overalling and how it all got started. And then he was telling me, and I need to find out more information about the king. What's it? The King of the Build that they're doing.
Battle of the Builders.
Battle of the Build. Yeah, sorry. It's getting late. So Battle of the Build. I still want to watch that and see if we can get access to that. Because, I mean, that must be interesting that they're doing as well. I mean, going around, how many cars? I mean, there's 300 cars that's still entering Battle of the Build or something crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what the final tally was, but normally, it's been going on now for probably about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Normally there's this sort of like a pyramid thing, right? So you get kind of the base level winners, and they move on to like local, regional qualifiers, and then top cars go to SEMA, and then they get judged, and then it ends up as the final 10, and then the final 5, and the final 5 are on stage, at SEMA Ignited, which is sort of the after party. And they're up on these big sort of elevated platforms, and there's like, lights and, bleachers full of people. And then, the hosts come out and they announce the final winner. And you've had Mike and Jim Ring on. The Rings won last year, and it's very emotional win for all of us. It was super cool. This year, obviously, had to kind of pivot. And I think it's cool that Bud's guys have been going around the country and shooting content. So I'm excited to see how that all comes together. And Mike and Jim are going to be judges. So that's pretty
Are
neat.
they judges this time? I need to follow up with
Yeah.
them. I haven't spoken to them since we did the podcast, and I know that the car they had a secret. They gave that away. The owner came and fetched it. So I still
So there's a couple things going on. So it's interesting. They've been busy. They delivered a Blazer to the rapper Future,
Mhm.
and so he has that now, and that's been unveiled, and it's a pretty cool Blazer, and that's actually a funny story because they were selling a Blazer that they had built, a pretty straightforward build for a customer on Bring a Trailer, because that customer ordered a much crazier Blazer. He ordered one that they haven't debuted yet,
Yeah.
that I can't give away too many details on, but it's bonkers. It's like one of the wildest truck builds you've ever
I know
seen.
about it. They gave me a little bit of back information. I'm not
Yeah,
going to say anything about it either. Yeah.
four-figure horsepower. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nuts. And so I think that the owner was like, okay, I don't need two of these things. So he sold one on Bring a Trailer. And apparently Future's like guy, his like business manager, was bidding on it and trying to buy it for Future because Future wanted it. And he
Wow.
didn't end up buying it. And the person who did end up buying it was David McNeil, the owner of WeatherTech Floor Mats.
Mm.
And so apparently Future got pissed because he wanted to buy the thing and he lost out. That happens in auctions, right?
Yeah.
And so he called him up and said, hey, I want you to build me one just like it. And so they did. So that's pretty cool. So they've since kind of delivered that. We've got another build to debut pretty soon. You'll get some information on that soon. That's the crazy one. And then the other one that they've just finished that's really cool, and it's kind of an interesting story, is there's a guy named Wes Rydell who owns a big chain of car dealerships out here. And he's kind of famous because he's an older gentleman and really nice guy. And he's sort of like, the story of like the Medici family and like Michelangelo and all that, where like back in, I think, in the Renaissance, they were these sort of like affluent like traders, but they were patrons of the arts. So they paid
Yeah.
all these famous Renaissance artists to do all the work and allowed them to do what they did. Rydell is like the Medici of car builders, where he pays, Chip Foose and the Ring brothers and, Troy Trepanier and, Hollywood Hot Rods, all these famous car builders. He hires all of them to build him cars. And so he's got all these, I mean, he's got this
Oh wow, that must
collection
be
of
a
hot rods
serious
that's,
in collection, hey?
oh yeah. And I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a huge collection and it's only from like the best top name builders and like spare no expense. And so he went to Mike and Jim, and he owns a lot of Cadillac dealerships. And he said, I want a Cadillac that looks like the perfect iconic Cadillac, but drives like a new car. And so what they did is they took a 49 Cadillac fastback body and they took a brand new Cadillac
Uh,
ATS-V
That was the white one.
sedan,
The white one.
the white one. Right.
Yeah.
So
I
they
had that on
took
my
that
cover,
was
by the
at
way.
SEMA. Right. So
Yeah.
they debuted it at SEMA a few years ago, and it was, they put the body on and the interior is intact and everything else from the new car. And then Wes came back to them and said, I want to totally redo it. I want to
What?
completely change the front end. I want to change the back end. I like complete redo on a brand new build because he just had a different idea. And I mean, I think in a normal situation, people would say like, that's crazy, but
No,
the guy
it
had a
makes sense.
vision
He's a
and
car guy.
yeah, and right. And so they did it. So they're just finishing that up. So we're going to re-debut it, which we've never done before. In the next few weeks is re-unveil this
Oh,
car that,
well,
so that'll be cool.
so that means I've got another cover car coming, right?
You got another cover. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, so it's pretty neat that,
Well, the
that they
mag
were willing
that's
and able to do that.
the mag that's going out now. Okay, it's not main car on cover, but Robert Downey Jr.'s BMW.
Hmm. Yep.
That's coming. I love that article and the story behind that because I like how the German stuff's kicking into that same, or especially at that year. For the guys
Hmm.
on the show that don't know, you'll see when the next mag comes out. What year is that? It's I think it's
I think it's a
76, isn't it?
74. It might
70,
be a 76. Yeah. It's an
um,
E9, the 3.0 CS.
yeah,
And
that thing is
yeah,
beautiful, eh? But the carbon
it
fiber work and
is.
stuff on that thing's insane, though.
And Downey is an interesting guy. He has very specific taste, and he kind of art directed how he wanted it to look, and it turned out really cool. But you're right, it's a BMW hot rod,
Mm.
and that's kind of a new thing, and it's sort of interesting that that's becoming more. And I think companies like Singer have sort of normalized that. They've
Yeah.
made it okay to hot rod a German car, so it's cool.
Well, I had Tom Bailey, the drag racer,
Mhm.
on the show the other day, and
Yeah,
we were talking about different countries now, Australia, and I think he was talking about Netherlands, where they're doing those big street drag races and then this type of stuff,
right.
and the interesting cars that the guys are doing, because you're expecting like Novas and everything like you have in the US, but you go see these other countries and it's like Volvos and all these
Right.
weird things you've never seen before, that are based in drag cars. And I think we're going to see, and I've seen it out of Switzerland and stuff a lot. I've actually featured a bunch of them, but I think we're going to see more of that twist now as well, where guys are going to start hot or riding things that we've never seen before.
Yep.
But not just on that old traditional style or something, but bringing in carbon fiber. I mean, I actually had the conversation with guys the other day, and I don't understand why there's not more carbon fiber parts in the hot rod industry.
I think tooling. It's expensive and
Look, I ran
time
numbers.
consuming, but
I ran numbers a few years ago. All right, I was busy with a 57 Chevy pickup, and I needed to bring in a new hood for the car. And because of the price of shipping and the size of the hood and everything coming in, it worked out cheaper to have a new hood made in carbon fiber than it was to import a steel one from the States. Once you've gone through the numbers and this type of stuff, and that just got me thinking. But because I mean, with a lot of these older cars, I mean, the parts are big, the parts are heavy. There must be someone that's looking into like 57s and all the tri-5s and this type of stuff going, there must be something that we can start pulling out carbon fiber parts now than anything else.
yeah, and I think that's sort of Speedcore's business model. It's interesting. The Speedcore model is, their parent company is a giant metal stamping
Yeah.
company, and they have like a campus. It's this huge business that has like Ford and major their customers are like OEMs.
Mm.
And then Speedcore is like their little skunk works. And that is sort of their idea, is they have the resources of the parent company at their disposal. So they would say, okay, so like when they did Robert Downey Jr.'s 70 Mustang, the fastback, they take a nice clean Mustang fastback body and they blue light scan it. And now they can bring it into CAD or
Mm.
SolidWorks, and then they can kind of make whatever mods they want to make, flare the fenders or add scoops or do whatever they're going to do to make it look cool. And then once they've done that, they can use a 5-axis CNC machine to cut a plug out of basically foam. And then they look at the 3D version and say, okay, this looks good or doesn't, and make whatever mods they want to make. And then from there, they machine a plug out of billet.
Yeah.
And once that's done, that they can then just pull a mold, and they've got a big, huge, autoclave, and and because they use pre-preg carbon fiber, you can get perfect weave alignment, and you get a lot of repeatability, and you get your
Yeah.
tooling is billet steel, or aluminum, so it makes it super easy. And so that is their model, and they're doing that. They're doing, not only do they do their own stuff, like they're doing parts for the C8 Corvette right now, and they're doing a lot of bodies for
Oh wow.
Chargers. They have a kind of 68 to 70 Charger body, and they've built quite a few of those. But they're actually working with a company right now where they're doing Shelby, 67 Shelby bodies out of carbon. So they've
It's not
actually
with a
started doing
company in
that.
South Africa by any chance, is it? Because I know there's something like
No,
that
they're in.
happening. Because you know that super performance cars come from us.
I do, yeah, high tech, right?
Yeah. So when are you coming so we can go visit? They've got like a mini
I want to
track
go to high
thing.
tech. That sounds awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you should come visit. Then I'll take you, like in a week. I'll take you to high tech, and I'll take you to backdraft.
Oh,
Because
cool.
they're literally okay. They're far apart. Because one's in PE, one and one's in Durban. I was there the other day. They've actually doubled production. Backdraft.
Oh,
They're busy
really?
doubling up a production, yeah. And then I'll take you to some other very interesting car guys that you've never heard of before, that you would be very amazed is actually building overseas cars.
Love it.
Yeah,
Well, and to answer your other question, I think the other thing that is sort of the industry is dealing with right now is cheap Chinese steel parts.
yeah,
So, you've got companies like, like you mentioned, the Tri-5 Chevys. There's guys out of China that are popping out 57 Chevy bodies right now, and it's so cheap that I think that
the US
at
can't
least the
compete
companies
with
I've
that.
talked to,
Yeah,
yeah, they look at that and go, how do I, if I was going to do a carbon fiber body that's made in the USA for 57 Chevy, it would be, $50,000, $60,000, or you can go buy an entire Chinese steel 57 Chevy for, $20,000, or you can just go get an old real 57 Chevy, which is still available, and you can get a running car. It may not be a nice car,
yeah,
but you can get a running car for the same price, 25, 30 grand, and it's already got a wiring harness, and it's already got, a chassis and a drivetrain that might be crappy, but the
yeah.
parts are already there and you can technically restore them. So that's where I think the economics of it get a little funky. Um, but an idea that I've had for years and no one's jumped at it, so maybe it's a terrible idea, is you look at the Porsche market, for example, where sheet metal is outrageously expensive, and even like 74, 75, 76 911s, which aren't exactly the most desirable cars, even those are big bucks now.
Yeah.
And if someone were to make, like a carbon fiber, retrofit kit for one of those, where you could get a 80s era Carrera and backdate it to make it look like a 7911 out of carbon. So I bet, essentially like a DIY Singer, I bet someone would sell the
Uh-huh.
crap out of those.
Well, I was at Backdraft a few weeks ago, and he's busy building a 356 Porsche on the same principle. He's taken a Honda Accord and he's built it into the 356, the whole Accord,
Wow.
motor, dash, everything. He's showed me the idea. He's slowly but surely doing it because he says he's changing the body to adapt it and stuff. So they're hoping in the next two years because the 356s are picking up like massively at the moment. Everybody wants them. I know I do. I drove one just before lockdown and I've been hooked ever since. And the fiberglass bodies that's been coming out are just really bad. And they just got so expensive so quickly. So he's looking at the same as you can buy a backdraft. In a few years, you're going to be able to buy a backdraft 356 and at
That's
half the
cool.
price. It's going to be half the
That's pretty
price of
cool.
an AC as an AC. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a Cobra replica. It's not a backdrop, but I've been paying attention to those, and it looks like they built a nice car. Those have BMW suspension, I think, right?
Yeah. I laughed at him.
Yeah.
He's such a cool. He's in his 70s, the owner. Okay,
Wow, that's
and
cool.
he's actually started a race setup now in South Africa. He's got I think 14 cars out. He started a race series with Backdraft now in South Africa as well to try and push back into the industry. And he was what was he telling me? He bought in diffs, rear axles, BMW ones, but it wasn't the right one. So he's standing with me. He's like, I brought these in, they're wrong. You don't know anyone that wants 30 of them by any chance, do you? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, but they
Yeah.
manufacture everything on themselves. They're pushing out, because I did the video with them. They were pushing out 6 cars a week. They're now pushing up to 9 to 10.
Wow.
Yeah. And everything happens in one shop, eh? He's just added another
Wow.
level on top of it. And then there's a company in Cape Town called CAV. They built, according to Sterling
I've heard of
Moss.
them.
Now, according to Sterling Moss, it is the best GT40 that was ever built. And that's because he drove it as the pace car for Lamar. It's one of the interviews
Wow.
that I did. The guy that designed that, he's got a company that built, it's called the Stealth Beetle, which is a
Okay.
mid-mount V8 powered Beetle bug. They are running, and he's busy designing something new, which I'm also not allowed to talk to. It's a US company. He's building a car. They're going to be mass producing it now. He's re-engineered the whole car. Apparently, the
Oh,
first
cool.
test one is done. Because apparently the guys say if if you want a company to completely build rolling cars to sell, you go to South Africa. Apparently, we're very good at pulling full production, one-off,
Yeah, I've heard
limited. Yeah.
Yep.
So John, there's a podcast with him that I introduced him where he talks about this new project that he's doing. But he developed the CAV.
Yeah,
I think
that'd
we
be
should
good.
just get your butt on a plane, because you can now.
So-
Apparently, US is
yeah.
open, and just come visit us for like a week or two, man, and let's go see all these people. I think you'll be amazed
that'd
with
be
what's
fun.
actually on this side.
Well, that'll be a 2021 plan. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
And Joe, I apologize. I have to jump off in just 2 minutes here for another call.
No problem. Listen, it was absolutely awesome talking to you. All right, go.
Sounds like
Listen,
a plan.
look after yourself.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, man.
You too.
Bye.
Good talking to you.
Cheers,
Bye.
bye.